when Senate Akakashi shouted in Congress that what happens to Taiwan is what happens to Japan. It may seem arrogant and provocative at first glance, but I want to say this is actually a desperate wail of fear from a corner Japan, a last-ditch gamble with Japan's fate by right-wing politicians. Japan's obsession with the Taiwan Strait is never as simple as a so-called energy lifeline. What they fear is not the strait being blocked, nor a unified and powerful China. What they truly fear is that they will never again have the chance to stir up trouble in East Asia, and that the sins of World War I will one day be accounted for. Japan relies on imports for 94% of its energy and 60% of its grain. Its precision semiconductor manufacturing is entirely tied to the global supply chain, and the Taiwan Strait is precisely the choke point for these materials entering and exiting Japan. But this is only the surface. The deeper issue is a geopolitical death trap. As an island nation, Japan has no strategic depth whatsoever. Once a new order is established in East Asia, Japan will not even have the qualifications to negotiate, let alone settle historical accounts. Back then, Japan slaughtered over 100 million people across Southeast Asian countries, not including China, where the death toll at Japan's hands exceeded 35 million, a toll even more brutal than Germany's during the war. Now, as Japan watches China on the verge of regaining its peak, this fear has seeped into its bones, plunging it into an incurable persecution complex. Senate Akakashi's rhetoric is essentially a calculated political move. She herself is a weak right-wing figure who rose to power through nationalism and tough stance against China, a puppet prime minister, to put it bluntly. To consolidate her position, she needs to curry favor with the military-industrial complex and right-wing voter base behind her. Additionally, Japan's grassroots workers, who just had $500 billion harvested by the United States, need an outlet for their anger, yet they dare not express dissatisfaction with the U.S., so they can only redirect their grievances toward China. Do not mistake these $500 billion for a cold number. Assuming Japan has 100 million laborers at Japan's current wage levels, these 100 million laborers would have to work 3 months without eating or drinking to make up for this $500 billion. The result is Japan's economic recession, stagnation or even regression in technological research and development, growing public anger, and social instability. The most direct way now is to hype up the Taiwan Strait issue. This not only allows her to shape an Iron Lady image, but also provides an excuse for military expansion and constitutional revision. You see, we Japan aren't trying to achieve military normalization by choice. It's because China is too dangerous, and we can't survive without expanding our military. In recent years, Japan's military budget has surged from 1% to 3% of its GDP. It has purchased 105 F-35 fighter jets, built military bases on Ishigaki Island and Miyakojima, and deployed cruise missile and anti-missile systems. It's just one step away from finding a reason to go to war. Japan aims to use the Taiwan Strait issue to rename the Self-Defense Forces into a National Defense Force, trample the peace constitution underfoot, and revive militarism from the ashes. This is the true purpose behind Senate Akakashi's actions. Behind all this lies a sordid quid pro quo between the United States and Japan. The U.S. is currently overextended with a host of domestic conflicts and can barely handle the Middle East and Europe. Therefore, it urgently needs an obedient and capable thug, and South Korea is unreliable, so Japan is the only choice. Japan, for its part, is eager to use U.S. influence to break free from the constraints of a defeated nation. Takakashi's rhetoric is in essence delivering a letter of allegiance to the U.S. The U.S. is naturally happy to see this happen. It doesn't have to get involved personally, can let Japan contain China, and can make a fortune selling weapons it's not to like. But the U.S. will not protect Japan. The U.S. has always regarded Japan as a pawn, or more precisely, a disposable wife. It didn't hesitate to drop atomic bombs back then, and if a war really breaks out now, Japan will be the first to be sacrificed. The core reason Japan is in such a hurry to jump out now is simple. Time is running out for Japan. The United Nations has long predicted that by 2030, China's industrial output will account for over 45% of the global total. What does this mean? It will be equivalent to the combined industrial output of all G7 countries, plus a little more. By then, China's nuclear-powered aircraft carriers will be commissioned. Its crewed lunar landing will be accomplished, and it will lead the world across science, technology, and military industry, let alone hardcore capabilities like 6th-generation fighter jets, controllable nuclear fusion, and high-end chips. At that point, China will set the global industrial standards and become the beacon of technology. This is not an exaggeration, it is the reality Japan fears most and also the reality the United States dreads. This means that by 2030, the Sino-U.S. game will reach a watershed. The United States will have no choice but to gradually withdraw from the Asia-Pacific. And once the U.S. leaves, Japan's fate will be sealed. Its militarist crimes will be accounted for, the Ryukyu Islands will be returned, and even in accordance with the Potsdam Declaration, China will have the right to station troops in Japan. Japan dare not even think about these consequences. That is why it is in such a hurry to disrupt the rhythm before 2030 and force the United States to step into the fray. But I believe Japan has miscalculated. First and foremost, the United States will never truly go to war with China. The RIND Corporation has long made it clear that in the Western Pacific, especially near China's coastal waters, the United States simply cannot win. Politicians shout about supporting Japan and opposing China to win votes, but military officers know full well skirmishes with third-world countries are manageable, but fighting a peer competitor will leave them either dead or crippled. A shrewd businessman like Trump would never fight a battle with no chance of victory for Japan's sake. There have long been sensible voices within Japan. Former Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, opposing Yukio Haruyama, plainly stated that the smaller the dog, the louder it barks. Newspapers such as the Asahi Shimbun and Mainichi Shimbun have repeatedly warned that Senator Kakashi's rhetoric will push Japan to the front lines and erode the foundation of post-war peace. The Japanese people are not fools. They know that mindlessly following the right-wing will ultimately bring disaster upon themselves. But Takahashi doesn't care about any of this. Her mind is now filled with political interests, right-wing ambitions, and the fluke mentality of a desperate gamble. She thinks that by tying Taiwan to her chariot, she can force the United States to act. If there were no reference points, one might say that Kakashi's actions are driven by self-interest. But now, with Ukraine serving as such a perfect example, did the United States truly step into the fray? This only goes to show that Senator Kakashi is either foolish or evil.